Returnal is the best time loop game of the year. It's not only the most addicting and visually stunning time loop game of 2021, but the way its narrative setup adapts to its roguelite structure allows for an eerie space horror thriller that is ingenious in its delivery. Returnal nails mirroring its time loop narrative with its gameplay. You feel Celine's descent into madness as she attempts to escape an alien planet that has trapped her in an ongoing loop. What that means for gameplay is a reason to repeatedly explore the ever-changing planet while adapting to combat challenges, new enemies that become old enemies, and the mazes of Atropos that grow familiar the more you play. What that means for the story is a fascinating sci-fi thriller with layers that peel back in unique and unexpected ways. Returnal's time loop is a tool to drive home Celine's madness, and it's in repeated loops that her madness is uncovered and explored. So that's it, it's a short video. Returnal is the best time loop game of the year. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode of Welcome to the Blessing Show, where I break down what's up. So let's talk about what's up with time loops. Deathloop is the best time loop game of the year. And the reason why is because it's truly Arcane's own take on how to approach not only action stealth, but how to maximize player choice. In Deathloop, you play as Colt on a mission to take out 8 targets in 1 looping day. To do this, you'll have to meticulously line up your target's schedules over the course of many loops and across 4 districts to knock down the dominoes in a brilliant murder puzzle. This means returning to those 4 districts over and over again, taking different paths, revisiting targets, and occasionally being interrupted by Juliana, a character who's a wrench in the machine, appearing at any moment with you as her very own target. Deathloop nails the familiarity of a time loop. This is the reason why I say it's Arcane's own take on this type of game. In their previous titles, Dishonored and Prey, player choice is the name of the game. You're tasked with exploring levels with multiple paths, you're given an arsenal of abilities and weapons, and you're encouraged to play how you want. Deathloop takes that core Arcane design and expands it into practically a new dimension, using time. Districts are more open and explorable than any Dishonored level. You can enter any district at any time of day, and this changes things like security levels and available targets. And to knock out your quests, aka your leads, you'll need to treat different times of day during your loop like areas of an open world map, showing up at the right place in time to further that lead or complete your quest. Arcane has effectively taken an open world structure and converted it into an open time structure, and the game functions uniquely because of it, allowing for more options than ever before in an Arcane game for how to approach the overall mission, and allowing for abilities like Shift, Double Jump, Nexus, and others to define your own approach to exploring Blackreef. In a year filled with time loop ideas, I've never quite played another game like it, and to me, that makes it the best time loop game of 12 minutes is the worst time loop game of the year. I know, it's a controversial one, and I don't really love doing a whole video about a game that I don't like, but I really didn't like 12 minutes. In 12 minutes, you play as a man arriving home to greet his wife. She's prepared a special night for the two of you, only to be interrupted by Willem Dafoe, who's come to collect a special watch and murder you both in cold blood. It's an aggressive premise, but ultimately intriguing because this sets up the entire game as sort of an escape room puzzle to solve and break free, as well as setting up the Dafoe interactive gaming universe. Also, like, who doesn't want to get choked to death by Willem Dafoe? The place where this escape room puzzle falters is in allowing itself to fall victim to the tedious and maddening qualities of its time loop design. You're given a short amount of time per loop to figure out the next step to solving the game's grand puzzle. Like any puzzle, this should mean allowing the player to experiment with its pieces, interacting with what's available, and discerning the solutions based on what makes sense. However, so much of 12 minutes doesn't make sense. Solutions can be as simple as hiding in a specific spot, leading to an unpredictable chain reaction, to interacting with an object enough times that it'll cause a new effect. And within the constraints of a time limit, you're given less space to mess around with what's available. I would often start my loop by exhausting the dialogue branches I had available with my wife, just to check and see if maybe I had missed something, only for her to get frustrated and leave the apartment, prompting Willem Dafoe's entrance. I would also find myself constantly doing the unnecessary, repeatedly grabbing the same items like the phone and the knife, just in case they could eventually help in any given loop. I even murdered my wife multiple times because the game allowed me to do it and never ruled it out as a non-solution. Spoilers, you don't have to kill your wife, but in a game where you do have to watch her get stabbed, shot, and drugged, I don't think that was the craziest stretch. But what is a stretch is my character barely being affected by it the very next loop despite retaining all of his memories.
Hey. Sir, hey, babe. What the fuck?
12 minutes nails the frustration of being stuck in a time loop. And I don't think that's entirely not on purpose. There's often beauty in repetition when it comes to time loop games. Both Returnal and Deathloop deal with doing the same thing over and over again. However, both of those games find their own solutions to help keep that repetition from being tedious. 12 minutes made me go through the same motions over and over again to the point that by the time I made it about 4 hours in, I felt like I was going mad like Celine in Returnal more than I was solving a worthwhile puzzle like Colt in Deathloop. That's why 12 minutes is the time. The Forgotten City is the best time loop game of the year. It's a deductive mystery puzzle where you're transported through time to help a mysterious city escape its cursed fate. In the city exists one law called the Golden Rule, which says the many shall suffer for the sins of the one. If one person sins, everyone suffers, and your job is to figure out which of its inhabitants is about to break this golden rule. The Forgotten City provides you with 2 tools to solve the case. You have the ability to loop back through time to when you first arrived in the city, and you have a city filled with a cast of characters, each with their own personal stories, motivations, and routines that they follow. Similar to how in a game like 12 Minutes, you have your wife and Big Daddy Willem Dafoe's character who play their roles in a predictable fashion, the Forgotten City has that, but across over 20 characters. That gives you much more to manage and keep track of, but thankfully, the Forgotten City does a great job of tracking knowledge and progress through a quest system, known as leads. And if that sounds familiar, that's because Deathloop has a similar system. The Forgotten City is also smart about keeping you from retracing your same steps. Upon re-entering a loop, the first thing you can do is ask Galerius, my favorite character in the game, Galerius Squad for Life, hashtag Galerius for President 2024, to complete major tasks you've done in previous loops, such as giving a character the medicine they need, or stopping a character from entering a collapsing building. It's quality of life stuff that not only makes the time loop mechanic more believable, but more of an empowerment than a frustration. The Forgotten City nails the power fantasy of being in a time loop. There was never a new loop in the game where I didn't feel more equipped to solve the big mystery at hand. The townspeople's obliviousness to the loop made me feel like I always had the upper hand, and the twists and turns of the story kept me invested while sticking the landing better than I'd say any other time loop game did this year. That's why the Forgotten City is the best time loop game. Playing this many time loop games back to back makes me feel like I'm stuck in a time loop myself. No, that's crazy. But the craziest thing is, I wrote this script even before the release of Outer Wilds DLC Echoes of the Eye, which is sure to expand on that game's own time loop mechanic. Yet it's still worth bringing up and talking about Outer Wilds. In 2019, that game came out to some of the most explosive praise I've ever seen for an indie game that came out of seemingly nowhere. And for good reason. It's a game that I've wrestled with, being an ambitious space journey where you have a limited time to travel to various planets, play the role of an archaeologist, and uncover a mystery as the sun continually explodes and re-begins your loop. I say I've wrestled with the game because despite multiple attempts, I've never been able to push through to make meaningful progress and get to the bottom of the game's mystery. I'm sure one of these days I will, but regardless, it's one of those rare games that despite not having the desire to immediately jump in and probably crash my ship into the sun, I adore it for what it asks of you. I've spent a tiresome amount of hours staring at the text of a forgotten civilization, trying to listen in on instruments being played planets away, and making discoveries that concurrently confuse the hell out of me and blow my mind at the very same time. And the time loop adequately resets me so that at any moment I may start my journey from Timber-Hearth and choose a location in a different direction or get distracted by another lead along the way. Outer Wilds is one of the bigger examples of a time loop video game made right, and I don't think it's entirely coincidence that only 2 years later, we're seeing plenty of games follow suit in small and big ways. And that's not to say that Outer Wilds is responsible for Deathloop, 12 Minutes, and the like. We all know that video games take years and years to make, and Zelda Majora's Mask was messing around with time loops back in the year 2000. But somewhere along the line, all of these studios putting out games in 2021 saw the same potential there is for exploring time as a space to play around with. So why do we have so many time loop games? Well, time mysteries can be a wonderful way to build gameplay and puzzles through repetition, whether that's by building familiarity or creating a power fantasy. They're also a unique way to explore story and narrative by diving into characters and being given the space to intervene in their stories or reinforce and even alter your own actions. The time loop games of this year have all been displays of how differently you can use this one concept, but if I had to choose the best time loop game of the year, it has to be Welcome to the Blessing Show, where I break down what's up. So let's talk about what's up with time loops.